as a profession, we need to take a good look in the mirror and realize that a lot of the societal rules that we hear about, that we actually mentor our clients around, right? Save your money for retirement. When you want to retire, the golden years do not necessarily apply to us. You never have to retire in this game. Hi, this is Coach Joe Lucas, and welcome to the Magellan Network Show. My goal inside of this communication, this show, is to share with you my nearly 30 years of coaching some of the most successful financial advisors in North America. We're going to be talking about strategies, syntaxes. We're going to be bringing guests on from time to time, and I'm going to share with you what's working now. So think of this show as sort of like a little one-on-one kind of mini coaching cast, if you like, where we're going to be going in depth from time to time on strategies to help you grow your business, get more effective, become more efficient, find balance in your time management, grow your business, and quite frankly, whatever else is going on in the world today. So before we get to today's episode, I'd love for you to do a couple things for me. Number one, make sure that if you're watching this on YouTube, that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're doing the audio, make sure that you give us a review on whether Spotify or Apple. We'd really appreciate that. And quite frankly, that does help. It does matter when you rate things and like things and subscribe to things. It helps us get the word out to more of the industry. And lastly, I have a very special gift for you. Go to MagellanNetwork.net, so one word, MagellanNetwork.net, and I have for you a complimentary membership, 100% gratis, where you can tap into about between 50 and 75 hours of masterclasses, forms, tools, templates, and strategies. So please go ahead and make sure you go ahead and get that claimed. Smash the like button and subscribe. And please go ahead and leave us a review on whatever podcasting platform you're on. And now, let's get to this week's episode. Hi, it's your Coach Joe Lucas, and welcome to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. This episode, we're going to take a little bit of a right-hand turn here this week as I'm coming up on my 31st year of coaching advisors. Instead of getting granular with strategies and tactics and details, I thought we'd do something a little bit different this week and maybe talk a little bit more at the 50, maybe even the 100,000 foot view of what's possible. I almost consider this like a recruiting video for the industry a little bit. So, and here's what I mean by this. I've always asked this question when I'm in groups of advisors. Show me another profession where you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. And what I mean by that is, time, freedom, and economic abundance. Most advisors are not paid an hourly rate, right? You're compensated to produce results for people. If you really learn to master this game, you can definitely have multiple seven-figure income and multiple months or weeks off every year and be totally sustainable. And I just don't see that with other professions, whether it's the legal profession or the accounting profession or the health profession. You just don't see it, right? I mean, we are in a unique space where you could pretty much design whatever it is you want from a lifestyle/practice. And I also mean that whether, again, you work independently as an RIA, you're independent IBD, even at firms. I've got clients at all the major firms, and they get a lot of downtime. They have economic abundance. Again, that's more of a constricted environment. I think we'd all recognize that. There are a different set of rules there. But even with those different set of rules, there's so many things you can do. One of my clients many years ago shared this with me. I thought it was very profound. He said, being an advisor is the best business you'll ever own or the hardest job you'll ever get. And I thought about that a lot, and there's a lot of truth to it. So what I want to do today is really talk about, now that we're into February and again, motivation, January is come and gone, and now we're into the grind. I like to call it, now we're into the commitment months, right, which is February through December. Is like, why do we do what we do? Now, I coach advisors. So I coach you. Like, why did I pick advisors? Like, how did I end up here? And the reality was, it was happenstance. It was proximity. I just happened to live in New Jersey at the time, and happened to do a lot of stuff down in Lower Manhattan. And we all know what's in Lower Manhattan. If you don't know, that's Wall Street. That's where everything used to happen, right? Before technology. You know, one of the things I've always prided myself on is looking around the corner, looking down the road, seeing not how the business or the industry is today, but where's it going 5 or 10 years ago, or 5 or 10 years in the future, I should say. I'm going to harken back to a meeting I did back in 2006. We used to do a business planning meeting in December at that time, and I always used to do like a mid-year review meeting, right? Funny thing is that we never did reviews. We always ended up doing different topics, and that really kind of became our masterminds. But I remember I was in Del Mar, California. It was June of 2006. And I rolled out a presentation called the iAdvisor. Some of you may remember that. And I want you to go back. I'm sure it's floating around the internet somewhere, maybe on this channel, my YouTube channel, where I laid a thesis out. This is when 4-Hour Work Week first came out with Tim Ferriss. I read it several times, and that book profoundly changed the way I viewed life and business. And I asked myself back in 2006, I said, could an advisor really create a situation, a scenario for themselves where they had economic freedom, time freedom, and location freedom? Like, is it possible? And you remember, this is like well before COVID. This is like, we're talking like, this was just conceptual back in 2006, 2007, where like, could we do this? Right? And I remember sitting in the meeting room and me standing up to do the presentation. I had a very rudimentary deck back then. And I remember I took a lot of the concepts from the 4-Hour Work Week. And I laid out a question to everybody. I said, what would happen if it's possible to have all three? Economic abundance, time freedom, locational freedom. And I remember there were a lot of young guys in the room. Some have gone on to do great things as coaches and thought leaders in the space. Really embrace that concept. Like, yeah, man, like, why not? What happens if it works, right? And so that kind of started me on my quest to really kind of push the envelope of what was possible. So fast forward to 2020, when COVID comes around, like most of my clients were, not that we ever want that situation to occur again, but a lot of my clients were used to Zooming or Skyping, working remotely, or using GoToMeeting and doing things virtually and having a situation where they don't have to be in the office all the time. Like, we were really well adapted prior to that. And all of COVID did, from a business perspective, of course, is it validated my thesis. It validated that, yes, this profession, this industry, you can have all three things if you plan for it. So here's what happens. Most advisors never take advantage. Why? Because they are still stuck in the loop of what I call societal demands. Now, what do I mean by societal demands? The advisor are operating predicated on the expectations of society. Work hard, put the hours in, save your money, hopefully, and then retire before you're too old and can't enjoy it. And hopefully you don't run out of money. And I remember about 10 years ago, this is probably now 2015, 2014, 2012, somewhere maybe 10, 15 years ago. I said, why would we want to retire? And I remember I asked the question in a different meeting, maybe even back at Del Mar, as a matter of fact. I asked a very profound question. And here's the question. If retirement was off the table, like you planned to never retire, you'd work until your health gave up, and I'll say it's tongue-in-cheek, but it's kind of true. You play the game until you're in diapers and you have a bib and you're drooling at your desk, right? If you will. Or you'd literally just drop dead. But if retirement was off the table, how would you approach business? How would you approach your game? And to a person in the room, like 15, 20, maybe 23 people, whatever, to a person to a room, they all said the same thing. It doesn't matter if they were 30 years in the business, 10 years in the business, it didn't matter. All said the same thing. You know what that one thing they said was? Take more time away. Take more vacation time. Spend time with the family. Have more balance. Interesting. Across the board. Wirehouse, independent, young, old, didn't matter. So that's when we started to really talk about the concept in our space of lifestyle design, practice design, lifestyle practices. Because at the end of the day, there's only two ways to get freedom in this game. Number one, you keep your business small in terms of number of clients, number of team members, lifestyle, maybe small boutique. And so give you guys like a gauge. Lifestyle practices, solo advisor, so one advice giver, part or full-time assistant, live or remote. Okay. Small ensemble is when you add a junior advisor or servicing advisor or second chair, where I've got two people now giving advice, and you may have 1.5 staff, administrative support staff, insourced, outsourced, something like that. And then you can get into a little bit larger and stuff like that. Then you get an enterprise level and so on. But here's the bottom line. You keep your game small, lifestyle. And by the way, small does not mean economically you suck. I've got clients that literally work out. I'm serious. This is before COVID and obviously definitely after COVID. I've got clients that literally work out of their house. Like that is their place. And they'll top line at over $1 million with probably 70% EBOC. It's a great gig. It's literally 100, 150 households. Do the math. It's not crazy. That is available to everybody in this game. That kind of concept. And, for a lot of advisors who want to be an advisor, that's a great place. I mean, you're making more money than most doctors. The same person I'm talking about here, they're not, and the first one to tell you this, by the way, they're not the smartest one in the room. They're really creative. They believe in things, and they go make things happen. And like he said to me, he's very much like my age, early 60s. And he goes, I'm netting out $700,000, $800,000 a year. I kind of work, 2 weeks a month. Pretty much summers are almost off, unless the client has a 911. All his new clients are by referral only. We're going to bring in a next gen to cover ourselves. That'll be our change. But he goes, man, I can do this for another 15, 20 years. Like, I feel good. So here's why this is important. A lot of you still think like you have jobs, that you're going to retire at 65, that let's hurry up and make a lot of money. And so therefore I can retire, sell my practice, and be bored for the rest of my life. And by the way, number one reason advisors don't retire is not economics, it's fear. Loss of purpose. So my scenario to you is, why retire? Hi, Coach Joe Lukacs here, and I'm just breaking here for a moment just to do a couple quick reminders. Number one, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel or our podcast. In addition, please leave a comment or a review. Those things really, really matter. And share this episode with 3 of your colleagues inside the financial services space. And lastly, make sure that you go ahead and claim your free membership inside of Magellan Network. Now back to this week's episode. Like we all here in our industry, and when I read the same thing you guys read, right? On the client side, the greatest transfer of wealth, right? The boomers, stuff like that. And then on our world, next 5 years, we're going to have the largest number of advisors retire. I think a certain percentage of them need to retire because they're getting close to the diaper bib thing, and we don't want diminished capacity. But I think a lot of them are in the game because they don't think those options. Can you, in your early to mid 60s, radically shift your game to be totally sustainable for the next 10, 15 years if your health is good? Yes. Why? Because I've done it. I know exactly what that looks like. I think as a profession, we need to take a good look in the mirror and realize that a lot of the societal rules that we hear about, that we actually mentor our clients around, right? Save your money for retirement. When you want to retire, the golden years do not necessarily apply to us. I instill in all my clients, if possible, the belief of that you never have to retire in this game, that there's always going to be a version of the game that's available to you, and you have to plan it out. If you just keep doing what you're doing, you're not going to produce any different results, right? And I've got clients that are selling pieces of their business to their staff, right, to their team advisors, to their children. But we're always going to be chairman emeritus. Like we're always going to play. It's a beautiful thing. If you love the game, find a way to do it on your terms. We're not airline pilots. There's no mandatory retirement age here. And for some of you that watch or listen to me that are coming from this as, I'm just going to suck it up for a couple more years and then I'm going to sell this thing, I want to offer you a different possibility. Instead of grinding it out for the next 36 to 48 months, why don't we have a conversation about making it something that's joyful for you? Something where you don't really want to retire. Like you can play the game for another 10 years on your terms. Why not that? And here's the other thing I'd say, and I got a couple more other things I want to get you guys out of here. If you, and I've had clients do this, I said, so number one, do you have your own financial plan? Yes. Are you saving money for retirement? Yes. What's your framework on retirement? Everybody says the same thing, 65. Why? Because that's what society tells us. I said, I want you to do something. I want you to rework your financial plan with you not retiring at 65, but at 75. And I've had clients come back and I don't care what software you use, come back and said, I have a lot of money to do a lot of bucket list stuff if I want. Like I don't have to save as much. I said, yeah. Interesting, isn't it? I'm not going to get, everybody's got a different philosophy on this. So there's no right or wrong, it's just preference. Some people want to die with as much money as possible. Others, I know there's a movement, which is the die with zero movement. I understand that too. I probably lie somewhere in the middle of those two things, quite frankly, myself. But here's my philosophy, and I try to instill in my clients. Whether you die with $5 million or $10 million of savings, net worth, investable assets, here's the one thing, you're dead. And it's just me. I'm going to share some things with you that I think are important. You may not, and I appreciate that, and I accept that. But I remember talking to a client a couple years ago. His daughter was doing a semester abroad, and she was doing it in New Zealand. And he was going to go visit her. And this guy's 6'7", 360. Big guy. He was at one of my live events. I remember talking to him. And if he watches it, and he knows who he is. I said, man, it's going to be really exciting, stuff like that. And I'm looking at it and he goes, yeah, it was like 22 hours on the plane and stuff like that. I said, yeah, man, you'll stretch out. Like, no, I'm paying for economy. I'm like, wait a second. I said, time out. And this guy is a 7-figure producer at a firm. So I know what he makes. I say, wait a second. Let me get this. I know your business. You've been a client of mine for a decade. In what universe do you think it's a good idea to put your big body in a small seat? And if it's not about you, think about the people that are going to be around you for those 22 hours that you hog up the whole row. I said, don't you think you've earned the right to sit in the front? And I saw him thinking about it. And I said, I know what you're doing. You're doing the math. Oh, that's going to be like 15 grand round trip or 20 grand round trip. And I go, it's probably going to be 20 grand round trip. But you only live once and you can't take it with you. Wouldn't you rather have the experience of doing it a certain way versus a torture test for you and the people around you? So he took my advice, got in front of the plane, and he goes, what a great experience. You were right. I said, it's right. Now, for some of you, when you hear me say that, the first part of your brain goes, oh, that was really wasteful. Shouldn't have done that. I get it, right? Everybody has to live their life according to what's important to them. I choose to do certain things a certain way, right? Why? Because at the end of our lives, we're not going to sit there with our last breath thinking about our net worth. We're going to be thinking about our last breath of all the memories that we created. That's the richest in life. Now, I'm also in that same breath not saying to everybody go buy a Lambo, go live in a 10,000 square foot mansion, let's go get the yacht like they had on the E-Trade commercials or the Vanguard commercials. I'm not saying to do those things. What I am saying is don't live a life of scarcity. You don't have to go do those things if you find them wasteful, but don't torture yourself either. Like, I'm all about bucket lists. So one of the things I do with all my clients, and if you're a client, you know this, we talk about, hey, what are the experiences in life we want to do? And I pretty much mandate to all my clients, every year we're going to have a bucket list trip if they're in the part of their career where it's feasible to do. All right. I'm doing one a year. I'm 60. I'll be 61 this year. Last several years, my wife and I have done a bucket list trip a year. Every year we pick one. I get to pick, she gets to pick. And probably another couple of years, I'm going to start doing 2 a year. Why? Because I don't want to wait till I'm in a wheelchair or, non-ambulatory, or, I just don't want to be that person like everybody's going to make an exception for me. I want to go enjoy the things while my body allows me to go enjoy them. That's it. A lot of you are spending way too much time in the office and not enough time living life. And that's a shame. And I will tell you, because I've been at this now long enough where I've taken clients through their midpoint of their career and I've helped them exit their businesses, right? Off doing other things. I've been a part of it now, right? I've been at this that long. There's only two things that show up in that conversation. Number one, I should have spent more time away. Number two, thank God I spent that much time away. That's it. So I'm challenging everybody here. Hopefully I'm inspiring everybody here. What's really possible here? Like, what's really possible? Working remotely for a month. I used to think for many years that the concept of sabbatical was like impossible for advisors. Like, how can you take a month off? Like, I'm talking like in a row, like 4 weeks, 30 days, whatever you want to call it, right? And then I remember one of my clients, Tommy Martin, who's gone on to do really great things in his world, young guy, still very young, posed a question to me once about 15 years ago. He said, do you think that I can take a month away with my family in Hawaii in the summer? And he lived, I think he still lives in Indiana, Fort Wayne. And I said, you know what? Let's work the problem, right? Let's brainstorm. And he had enough courage to do it. And he did it. And he goes, you know what, Joe? I did it. I'm going to do it every year. It was the best thing I've ever done. And I shared that with a couple of clients who thought I was crazy. It's only crazy unless you don't do it. Let's test it, right? And I'll tell this to everybody here. If there's a way for you to take 3 to 4 weeks, 1 week's like a vacation, 2 weeks like a vacation, you get into 3 weeks mini sabbatical. So let's say anything 3 weeks plus is a sabbatical window. And I take 3 3-week plus every year. So I'm semi-retired, technically. I got 16 weeks every year between sabbatical and renewal time and things like that. And I really coach and teach my clients to do the same thing. Like, once you've taken a sabbatical, like you've taken 3 weeks away from the game, number one, you come back really appreciating it. You come back a little bit of a different person. And you know what you come back to? Being committed to the next sabbatical. So I'll ask you, then we'll get you out of here. If retirement was not a possibility for you, what would you do different today? Thank you for listening or watching or both this episode of the Magellan Network Show. I invite you to spend 30 days with me inside of my game. Just go to MagellanNetwork.net, fill out an application, come into my world for a month, see if it makes sense for you. See you all again next Friday, which happens to be Valentine's Day. So we'll see about sharing some love. Until then. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. Hey, if any of this resonated with you, I invite you to come to MagellanNetwork.net, and we have a powerful group coaching community of like-minded advisors. Come in for a trial. You and I will have a one-on-one conversation. Let's see if I can help elevate your game both personally and professionally.